that's about the highlights of my life. I'd like to hand you over to Miss Annie Miller, the young lady there with the green skirt on, tell you about her life.
I'm Annie Miller, and I was originally from McKinnon, Tennessee. My husband Joseph and I decided that Rough and Ready would be an excellent place to raise a family. And we were right. We had 3 beautiful children, Joe Jr., who was age 5, Annabelle, who was 3, and Ruth Roslyn, who was only 2 months old when I passed away. That's why it's so understandable that my husband had to remarry soon after my death. See, it's rumored that he's buried in either Green Hill or Possum Valley alongside of 2 of his other wives. Now, I know what you're thinking, but really back in those days, it wasn't that odd for couples to remarry shortly after the death of a spouse. Without your husband, if you were a woman, you had no means of support and no money, and unless he was rich and left you with money, which was odd for Rough and Ready community people, then really there was nothing you could do, so you had to remarry. And for a man, well, if he was left with children, he immediately had to find a new mother for his children and a wife for his household. So that's why it was understandable that he remarried, so to say. And after me and him got married, I worked day in and day out. I cooked and cleaned and just tried to raise my family the best that I could. But don't get me wrong, we did have some good times. The thing I remember the most back in those days, I guess right after the turn of the century, were the Saturday night dances. People from all around neighboring communities would come over in wagons or buggies just to come to people's homes. We'd invite them in, and they'd dance and party, and we would have a great time. But don't get me wrong, I was a devout Christian woman. I joined the Methodist Church at a very young age and continued to have a very strong faith in the Lord. And I really was thankful because back in those days, people died very young, and I lived until I was 31 years old. And so a lot of people that I knew had already passed away, either from, childbirthing, and a lot of children didn't even make it past their first birthday. So I found myself to be very, very fortunate. And I mean, just all the diseases and all that awful, terrible stuff. About all the terrible, awful things, I was going to let y'all in on a little bit of gossip that's here in the Rough and Ready Cemetery. And we don't like it to get out, but I'm going to tell you all anyway. There is a gangster buried amongst us. And he didn't really have a proper burial. He was kind of just thrown out into the woods a little bit, and they kind of just threw some leaves over him and left him there. But I'm going to introduce you to him, and I want you all to hold on to your valuables and be very careful, but if you'll just come on over this way, you can meet the gangster.
Well, now, how y'all folks doing? Bivey's the name, Wilt Bivey, bank robber extraordinaire. I tell you what, sure is a nice day today, isn't it? You folks got yourselves a real nice summer coming. I can tell these kind of things, good summers and bad summers. Seen them both. Yes, sir. You got to watch out for those bad summers. Heat'll take the thinking right out of your head. I'm living, well, let's just say I'm proof. Of course, there wasn't nothing like the summer of 1937. I remember it well because on that particular year, there was a heat wave that went through the U.S. It was so hot, it was setting records. People were mistaking the sweat from buzzards for rain. This was about the same time that Amelia Earhart disappeared, too. About the same time of the Tomato Festival. In fact, there was so much big stuff going on that a person like me could practically steal the whole state. Well, at least that's what I thought. See, back in '37, I thought I could take Arkansas for everything it was worth, and I almost did. See, I'm what you call a professional criminal. I used to run with Bonnie and Clyde, so I knew what I was doing. Now, actually, starting out in '37, I was in prison, serving life for murder. But that was fine by me, because I knew that meant I had plenty of time to see my chance to make a run for it. So I hooked up with a fella named James Rice, and we waited and waited, and finally we saw our opportunity. And this was over at the Eastham Prison, Texas. Eastham Prison Farm over in Texas. We saw this guard on his horse, and we got his shotgun and horse, which is all any man needed those days to survive, and we escaped. Well, they were so mad after we did that, they had planes in the air and bloodhounds on the ground. We took up with a fella named Harry Roberts, and for 28 days, we robbed every bank we thought we could rob. Shoot. We got real famous doing it, too. In fact, we had, what do you call them? Copycats. Yeah, we had other criminals trying to be just like us. Which was good because it was making us even more popular, and it was leading the cops every which way. I guess my first real mistake, though, was letting old Harry do the horse swapping. See, we had this 1936 Oldsmobile. It was a nice car. We stole it over in Jonesboro. Well, anyways, we had it about 9 days, which is too long to keep any stolen car, so we figured we'd go over to Fordyce and see if we couldn't, trade it in on the new one. Well, the whole way over there, Harry was just begging me, let him do the negotiating. And so I let him, and so I messed up. You see, he never was too good at negotiating things. And when it was all over and done, the dealer, he thought we was just wasting his time, so he went back in his office, sitting in front of his big fan. Well, it was a good thing for Harry he could hot wire a car, because Jim and I would have left him right then and there on that spot. But he said he could hot wire it, and we made a new plan. So what Jim and I did was we hopped in the car and we drove out, making sure that the dealer could see us by the window. Meanwhile, Harry was around the corner earning back his credit. Well, it wasn't too much longer after that we realized something went wrong, because when we went down to our meeting spot, we noticed he never showed up. Real soon after, we got the word he was headed for the Rising Slammer. Now, James and I, we talked about it for a little while, and we decided we had to go get him back. I mean, after all, he did try and get that car for us, and I imagine, you know, when I pictured it in my head, the look on his face just about tore me up. Besides, we still needed that new Ford. So what we did was we headed up to Rising, pulled right up at the courthouse, and we couldn't have timed it perfect. They were escorting Harry right across the courthouse lawn, and we just screeched up there, leveled off our guns at him, and we took back Harry and that new Ford. Well, they were so mad after we did that, they set up roadblocks every which way. And we noticed that the only problem was that the guard that we held up and got Harry back from, he thought we was with the Charles Chapman gang, which was a different gang at that time that was one of those copycats. Which was actually good though, because it made us even more famous, and once again had the cops looking every which way. But on the other hand, it was bad too, because there was so much confusion with state and local, with half of them looking for a Charles Chapman gang, the other half looking for us, that they had to send the FBI down. And that was big time then. Well, we noticed real soon after that we couldn't go anywhere without being spotted or seen or something like that, so we decided we had to lay low. Lay low was right. We laid low for about 3 days. That's all we could do before being seen again. We went over to Selma to buy some groceries. We went in there, and I remember in particular there was this big block of cheese they had over there, and we were trying to stock up, so I asked the man how much he wanted for the entire piece of cheese. He said $4. I said, that's great, we'll take it all. Well, I guess he had known something was up. See, back then, if you buy a $4 block of cheese, that means you're not planning on doing some shopping for a real long period of time. So I'm pretty sure after we left, it was him that called the law on us. Well, we got down the road a couple of miles and pulled off, was eating lunch. We just talked about ditching that car, getting another one, heading back to Star City, rob that bank. Well, Harry Roberts said that was fine with him, and he stepped out to go to the bathroom, and that was the last I ever seen of him. Before I knew it, cops were pulling up everywhere, and we had ourselves an old-fashioned shootout. Well, I got one of them in the hand just before I felt 35 bullets fly through my body. Last thing I saw, I looked up at James, and he was still alive, but he looked pretty scared as he saw me going down. And that's about all I can remember. Very next day, they dug this hole right here, threw me in. I've been there ever since, and that's fine by me. But you know, just because I'm dead don't mean that I can't rob people blind, so if y'all wouldn't mind, y'all could just go ahead and drop those flowers, and I'll be getting them from you. Y'all have a good day now.